It's up to you, New York, New York.
Good morning, good morning, happy Thursday morning. It's Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, and I'll be riding solo today. Want to speak on the NBA playoffs, lot going on. Houston Rockets stave off elimination yesterday against the Los Angeles Lakers, and this is turning out to be a very odd, interesting series. Kevin Durant may very well be returning for game 6. Can the Houston Rockets be the first team ever to come back from 0-3 in the NBA? Uh, yeah, they might be able to pull this off. Now, of course, game 7 would be in Los Angeles, and of course, they still have to win game 6. But momentum definitely shifting towards the Rockets after being down 0-3 and winning 2 consecutive games. And speaking of staying alive, the one-seeded Pistons in the Eastern Conference get the W yesterday against the Orlando Magic. And I'm going to say it like this. Orlando, if they're going to win this series, absolutely has to win game 6. If they go back to Detroit for a game 7, I don't like Orlando's chances. And I think the warts and everything comes out as to why Orlando was a play-in team. Cade Cunningham was not to be denied yesterday, 45 points, just had a monster game. And, if Orlando should fall in 7, they have nothing to be ashamed of. But it's tough when you're up 2 games and can't get the final one. The final one is the toughest one to ultimately win. Having said all that, I think Orlando has a great chance to close them out in O-Town, but it has to happen there. And I expect the Pistons to play like it's their last game of the season because it could be. On the docket tonight for the NBA at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, New York Knicks making the trip down south to Atlanta, looking to close out the Hawks. I'm picking the Knicks. My final score 110-103. I'm expecting a competitive game. But after the 2 games I've seen, games 4 and games 5, I feel that the Knicks have kind of cracked the code on CJ McCollum to kind of make him a non-factor. And I believe the Knicks are going to force Atlanta to take too many perimeter shots. They've been very good at making sure that Atlanta is not getting into their running style. And between Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, they're determined right now. I think Jose Alvarado has been a huge boost off the bench, just the energy he brings, let alone anything he's going to put on the stat sheet. But I think tonight you're going to see someone else from the Knicks have a night, whether it's Josh Hart, whether it's OG Anunoby. I think someone else is going to pick up the slack as the third scorer. Josh Hart's not known for having those games occasionally, but I could see OG Anunoby, who's had a pretty good series, really balling out tonight and closing out that series for the Knicks. In Philadelphia, the Celtics look to close out the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid's return has proven to be a positive one for the Sixers. I personally believe that it's going to be a dogfight in that game. It could go either way. I've got the Sixers winning by 4. Neither outcome would shock me. But if you're a Knicks fan, you want to win tonight and you want to hope that Boston can get extended at least one more game. Because as a Knicks fan, particularly when you look at what went down in game 2 in this Hawks series, Knicks should be done already. I expect a really physical game, but I'm looking for Tyrese Maxey to have a big night. And I think the Sixers are finally going to win a home game and force a game 7 in Boston. Ultimately, I think the Celtics still win this series. It's just hard for me to see the Celtics losing 3 in a row. I don't see it happening. And I was recently asked on the show who I would rather play. After deliberating for a little bit, because I do know that Philadelphia, particularly Tyrese Maxey, has given the Knicks fits over the years. I would, of course, rather play Philly regardless. But ultimately, I think Boston finds a way to do it. Minnesota Timberwolves looking to close out the Denver Nuggets. Now, the Timberwolves are in a real bad place roster-wise. Dante DiVincenzo out for the season with a torn Achilles. Anthony Edwards is currently hurt. Denver is on the road. They're going to deal with a raucous Minnesota crowd. But this kind of game, I expect Nikola Jokic to have his signature kind of game. I'm expecting a triple-double, 30, 12, and 10 at minimum. I think Jokic is going to really have a day. But, the Timberwolves have 2 chances to win one game. But this is the one you want to win, similar to what I said about how Orlando has to take care of business. But you can't compensate for losing 2 starters like that. Julius Randle's going to have a night, but it's not going to be enough. Give me the Nuggets tonight, and give me the Nuggets in that series as well. Denver's pretty fortunate because I believe that if these injuries don't go down, Minnesota wins the series, no problem. But most definitely, give me the Nuggets in that series. Give me the Celtics and give me the Knicks. This Rocket Lakers series is weird, but with Kevin Durant coming back and he's really had no impact on this series, it goes 7, and anything could happen in a game 7. And, it could be another chapter that you put into the LeBron versus KD book as they've met many, many times over the years. 2 of the greatest overall players of this generation. I still think the Lakers find a way to win the series. I remember a situation some years back where the Miami Heat had a 3-0 lead over the Boston Celtics. The Celtics were able to force a game 7. Ultimately, Miami won in Boston. And the only other time that I actually remember, you got to go way, way back to the 94 season. The Denver Nuggets, this is back when it was a 5-game format, defeated the Seattle Supersonics after being down 0-2. They then played the Utah Jazz. They were down 0-3, were able to force a game 7, but Utah ultimately won game 7. The percentages are just so wacky against anybody trying to overcome an 0-3 deficit. But because of the injury variables and because of how strange this series has been, this is a series where I actually think it could happen. I don't think it will, but I think it could. And, this is good for teams that have already advanced, as they always want more games played for the teams that are still in the first round. As the Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs, right now they are relaxing. They're getting ready for the second round, and that ultimately is my Western Conference prediction. But I do think in the East, round 2 of Boston and New York is going to be excellent when you consider that I'm sure the Celtics feel that they have some unfinished business after losing in 6 to the Knicks, being the favorite, losing those 2 home games last year, blowing significant leads in each of those home games. And of course, the Jason Tatum injury, as he missed the majority of the season before coming back. And right now, Jason Tatum looks good, but I expect a 7-game war. I think it's going to be a phenomenal series. Do I think the Knicks are a better team? Actually, I do. I think the Knicks have a better rotation. How that translates to a series, I'm not sure. The Celtics, I respect them. They did win the Atlantic Division again in a season that the Knicks are expected to win. But the second season is what matters, and that's where we're at right now. But I think it's going to be a phenomenal series. Of course, I'm rooting for the Sixers tonight because of the fact that if we play Boston, First two in Boston. I would like the Knicks to have a little bit of extra rest going into that. Moving it along to Major League Baseball for a second. I don't know how much longer it's going to be until Carlos Mendoza of the New York Mets is fired, but this is getting sloppy. 14-2 loss to the Washington Nationals, a team that is not good by any stretch of the imagination. And the dumpster fire known as the New York Mets just keeps failing. When you consider that Alex Cora is available, it could be a very rare situation where a recently fired manager could get another managerial gig immediately. I'd like to think that Carlos Beltran, the Mets' original choice, who was hired and then let go of immediately because of off the field controversies, could also be a candidate. I don't think they're going to promote from within on a situation like this, but I just don't see Mendoza surviving regardless of what the players feel. This is most definitely on the players. I want to make that clear. But this is also a team that was constructed. So, obviously upstairs. So I feel that when it comes to the Mets, you have to hold those above the team accountable, similar to how I feel about getting rid of everybody in Boston except the GM. Now, I've read some reports that Don Mattingly in Philadelphia, he is the interim manager there, is probably only going to be a temporary situation. We'll see how true that is. Now, of course, if the Philadelphia Phillies were able to turn things around, I believe that they would reassess that. After seeing the Toronto Blue Jays get so close to winning a World Series, Don Mattingly was the right hand last year in that Blue Jays situation. And, he's getting up in age. I don't think this is something that he necessarily envisioned, but you don't know. I mean, his son Preston is in the front office. I'm rooting for Donnie, even though it's not my nature to pull for anybody, any kind of Philadelphia teams, but Don Mattingly is my favorite baseball player. It's really weird seeing him with a Phillies hat. Then again, it was kind of weird seeing him with a Blue Jays hat. Dodgers, I was like, whatever. He was there with Joe Torre. But the Phillies and Mets, two teams that have owned the at least preseason predictions for this division for the past few years, both flailing. They are both playing terrible baseball right now, especially the Mets. And I've got to think that barring a significant turnaround, the Mets are going to be axing Mendoza, and he'll be the second manager this season to be fired. So definitely something to keep a look on. And it's a lot of pressure because when the Yankees have the best record in the American League, and whether it's fair or not, the Mets are always chasing the Yankees for New York City supremacy. It's almost like an unfair race. I mean, the Yankees have not had a losing record since the early 90s. But the Mets are in trouble. And when you consider that they have the second highest payroll, it's quite embarrassing. Yeah, for sure. It was an era of Yankee baseball where I feel that Don Mattingly had to deal with so much uncertainty around a dysfunctional organization. The Yankees didn't really get a team that could potentially win a World Series until the twilight of Mattingly's career. And Mattingly's career was cut short, obviously, because of very painful back injuries where he had to do an awful lot just to get on the field. But I do believe that, revisionist history, if Don Mattingly decides to play a couple more years, let's say if he played through 98, 3 more years, that man would have been a captain of a dynasty. Now, ultimately, Derek Jeter still would have been the captain, but the whole legacy of Don Mattingly gets a complete facelift. He doesn't have to win championships, in my eyes, to be who he was. I think the postseason that he put on in 1995, where he laid it all on the line because he knew that was his last dance, tells you the kind of player that Don Mattingly was on the grandest stage, as he had a phenomenal series against the Seattle Mariners. And most people feel that Mattingly home run in the Seattle series is the loudest pop in Yankee Stadium, too. I'm willing to believe that. My father was actually in the house, and he called me from the stadium as that ball went into the crowd. And quite frankly, my eardrums were just moving. That's the kind of, and that's through a phone, mind you. But yeah, Don Mattingly, always a special Yankee. And that's a big concern of current Yankee fans, that they don't want to see the same fate for Aaron Judge being a captain, being the best player in baseball, and not getting it done. Because for a solid 5 years, Don Mattingly was undeniably the best player in baseball. A couple more years of his elite production, the man would be in Cooperstown. Some people feel he should be regardless. Definitely one of the greatest first basemen I've ever seen with the glove. And I think the intangible why so many people love Mattingly is just the way he carried himself. A true professional through and through and a generational talent. Mets spend so much money to suck. Yeah, they're not the first and they're not the last. But yeah, when you have a higher payroll than the Yankees, but you're the worst team in baseball, we get it. It's only April. But the kind of hole that they've put themselves in, it's going to be uphill for the rest of the year. There are a couple of bright spots on this Mets team that I have noticed, particularly in their pitching staff, as I think Nolan McLean's going to be a hell of a pitcher. And former Yankee closer Clay Holmes has actually pitched really well. And this is a new role for Clay Holmes being a starter. But I don't wish the Mets bad. I really don't. It's just that I do believe there's a lot of delusion within that fan base. And I also hate for the Mets the trade that they made when they sent Brandon Nimmo to Texas, a team the Yankees just got done playing in 3 very competitive games, for Marcus Semien. That was a cash dump, but Brandon Nimmo's in a better place in his career than Marcus Semien. And then, whose team is it between Lindor and Soto? It just seems like there's a lot of funk going on in that clubhouse. Guys are just not getting along. Want to flip it to the New York Yankees for a second. Unfortunately, losing yesterday, but a quality road trip, 7-2. You can't ask for much more on a marathon road trip like that. The pitching has still been consistent. The pitching has been really good. Yesterday I give credit to Nathan Eovaldi as well as the bullpen of the Rangers as they shut out the Yankees. And it's going to happen. It's a long season. You're going to have those kind of games. But when your two last losses are in series you already won, you can handle it a lot better. And the Yankees are tired. I'm happy that they get a day off today. They get to set their sights on an Orioles team who is still trying to find themselves, but definitely a formidable opponent. Gunnar Henderson's having a pretty good year. Pete Alonso still trying to get his timing all the way through. He is one of the premier home run hitters, power hitters, right-handed on the right-handed side of the plate in all of baseball. This is his first go around with the Orioles. So I expect a competitive series there. Elmer Rodriguez, for a first start of his career, I thought did an admirable job. I love what the Yankees have for arms. You have LaGrange in the minors. Luis Gil currently got pushed down to the minors. I think that's where he needs to be to kind of get himself back together. Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon will be returning within the next month or so. And I look at what this rotation presents when you have two bona fide aces right now in Cam Schlittler as well as Max Fried. Will Warren's been pitching out of his mind. You still have Weathers, who I believe will ultimately be a middleman, a middle relief man, and a spot starter. And, like I said, adding Cole, adding Rodon. And I'm not expecting Cole to be an ace coming right off of his surgery. They're going to nurture his innings. They're going to keep an eye on him. They're going to make sure that he's not being overworked. But Cole, the beauty of this situation is he doesn't have to be who he used to be in the past to ultimately be effective, because with the kind of performances consistently that Max Fried and Cam Schlittler are putting on, Garrett Cole could kind of settle right in and not have to feel that he has to carry the rotation. And that's a huge thing. David Bednar, of course, I want to see cleaner ninth innings, I should say. But I believe that he's shown a really strong way about him to deal with adversity when he has runners on. It seems like he locks in. And in terms of being a closer, I feel a lot more comfortable with him than anything we've had the past 3 years or so, whether it be Clay Holmes, Luke Weaver, or the disaster that was Devin Williams. But, right now I'm saying fire the manager if you're the Mets, going back there for a second. But truthfully, if the Mets don't get it right, not only are you talking about firing guys, you got to consider being sellers too at the deadline. And, just kind of looking at the 2026 campaign as a true fail and then seeing if you can fix it and pick it up from there. But Definitely a tale of two different teams. And like I said, it's only April. I've seen the Yankees have some summer slumps where I've doubted their ability to do anything in the playoffs. In 24, they were going through it. They end up winning the pennant. 25, they had a similar slump. Unfortunately, they couldn't get over the eventual American League champion, the Toronto Blue Jays. But when I think about the big picture, I think the Yankees are in a position where they can literally play with anyone. I really believe that. I think the New York Yankees can play with anyone because pitching wins, and the Yankees have an abundance of pitching. Jason Dominguez, um, not sure what the deal is with that elbow. He took one on the elbow yesterday, and it's unfortunate because he just got called up to the main roster. But the Yankees have a ton of options, and I'll be honest, as a team, they're still not hitting great. But when you're getting those consistent pitching performances, it makes life a lot easier. And that's why the Yankees have the record they do. Best record in the American League. And while the bullpen has been effective, sometimes vulnerable, as Corey said, what I like about it is that they are among the least used bullpens. And that's because your starters are going for distance. And that's a huge thing, especially getting through the first month of the season as May is on the horizon coming in a couple of days. Actually, today's the last day of April. Before I get out of here, want to hit a little bit on the Odell Beckham saga. I know that a lot of Giant fans are very invested in seeing what happens with Odell. I recently said on the show that I think it's going to be uphill for Odell to make the team if they ink him, because you have to take into consideration the last few Giants teams, or even Harbaugh teams for that matter, have only had 6 active wide receivers. Now, when you look at what you got on the roster right now, Malik Neighbors will be coming off the injury. You've got brand new Notre Dame man Malachi Fields. You've got Darius Slayton. That's 3 guys right there. Gunnar Olszewski is going to make the team, obviously, in the receiving room because of the fact that he is your main return man. Now you've got 4. There's 2 spots left. You still got Jalen Hyatt on the squad. That's 5. And then you have to ask yourself, when it comes to the guys that are tweeners, guys that could be making the team or practice squad guys, do they offer more versatility than Odell? I personally think the Giants are intrigued enough to give Odell a contract and see what he can do. But definitely not a guarantee, because Odell doesn't offer a lot of versatility in terms of special teams or other things that he can do. I think the big thing that Odell brings, if they do indeed bring him back, is a mentorship role. But ultimately, Odell has to be happy with his role, and ultimately the Giants have to be comfortable with that. But when I look at his previous stops, it doesn't seem like Odell has had any issues in terms of what his role was. I think it means something to him to find a home, so to speak, as the Giants were his home and the place where he spent the most time. So in that regard, I do really believe it means something to his legacy to, end things on a high note after leaving town on a very negative note. But I do like the Shelby Harris pickup. I understand that the Giants are still contemplating DJ Reader as well to add to that defensive tackle room, as they are going to use a committee approach ultimately to replace Dexter Lawrence, who was traded to Cincinnati prior to the draft. I've also heard Calais Campbell's name, and a couple of days ago when I was hanging on the Sneaky G podcast, shouts out to those guys, great show, by the way. They said Calais might be leaning towards retirement, but I read an article this morning that says that Calais is on the Giants' radar, so we'll see. He's an ageless wonder at 39 years old. And once again, you talk about mentors, you talk about great locker room presences. He would be one of those kind of guys. But definitely a new day in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And I don't expect instant results. I'm not going to pull my hair out and go crazy if it takes a little while for the Giants to get going, because not everything gets fixed in one draft and not everything gets fixed in year one of a new regime. But if you look at trends in the NFL, the probability is on John Harbaugh's side to have a nice bounce back year for this organization, because if you look at previous new coaches to new teams, whether it's a first time coach or whether it's a coach taken over as a new coach for a new team, a second team or a third team or whatever have you, the results usually are positive. But I think when you consider that the Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders, Philadelphia Eagles are all physical teams, I think Coach Harbaugh, General Manager Shane, really made a concerted effort to make sure that the New York Giants are going to be a very physical team. Any era of Giants football that's worth celebrating, it's kind of simple. Low risk, high efficiency passing. Multiple running backs, very fierce running game. And of course, having a litany of pass rushers, edge rushers, and linebackers who assist in stopping the run. They've never had the greatest corners on any of these teams, but a lot of pressure is taken off the secondary when you could induce that kind of pass rush. That's what I think Coach Harbaugh is trying to build here. Of course, it's controversial amongst some of the fan base that they didn't draft Caleb Williams. But when I consider the necessital view of Coach Harbaugh to be a very successful running team and to also keep Jackson Dart out of the blue tent, I have no complaints about the second pick of their draft getting a premier lineman. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check out our friends at the Casual Convo Show every Monday and Wednesday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Also, check out Big Bosco Productions, my co-host Idris Salam on Bandcamp. That's BAND camp.com. He has a lot of really good music projects that are out right now. Really proud of my co-host. He's putting in work. And also check out the Make It Count podcast with my friend Sneaky G, a Giants-based podcast for the New York Giants football lovers. And just a really fun show to check out. And I enjoyed myself for the 25 minutes or so that I was hanging with these guys, as Sneaky did a terrific job of really diving into the backgrounds of each and every Giant draft pick. And we even kind of got into a little bit of the post-draft pickups, guys that weren't drafted like Thaddeus Dixon. Enjoy your Thursday. Let's go Knicks. Enjoy your rare off day, Yankees. And get ready for the weekend against a Baltimore team that's going to be looking to give you guys a tough go. And New York Mets, I'm going to just politely say I wish you guys luck. I wish you guys figuring it out. Because I'm not going to be one of these toxic Yankee fans that's going to clap that the Mets are doing so poorly. One of my best friends ever is like the most devoted Mets fan. He's like the biggest Mets fan in the world. And he's loyal. I don't wish bad on them. It's some of the delusional fans why I get crazy. It's never about, oh, they're not the Yankees, so screw them. They're a New York team. I don't hate them. Not the same loathe and hate that I have for like the New York Islanders and the Brooklyn Nets. I don't even hate the Jets. How can anybody hate the Jets? They've been down for so long. Same goes for the Mets in my eyes. Those couple of seasons don't say anything to me. I also am going to close on this thought. While a lot of Met fans have enjoyed getting on the Yankees' current World Series drought, one thing that's worth considering, when you're constantly in the playoffs, but you're not winning it, you get scrutinized a lot more than if you're a team that once in a while goes to the playoffs, but gets it done once. And it's a weird irony in that. But going to the playoffs each and every year, or almost each and every year, and constantly having a winning record is one of the most unappreciated stats that the New York Yankees have been able to put together since the early 90s. Have a great day, everyone. I'm out.